that when I left medicine, I don't think there's a single doctor who asked me why I did that. I think every doctor has had that thought, and only when you get that sense of something is not right in life do you then reevaluate and think, is this really where I want to keep heading? And by that point, you're 10 years deep and you feel like it's too late to change. And that's the situation that a lot of my friends are still in, right now.
Why would you study 20 plus hours a day to become a doctor to only quit 18 months later? This is the story of today's guest, Dr. Justin Sung, a medical doctor, top 1% TEDx speaker, and the co-founder of iCanStudy, who turned his own burnout into a mission that is now reached over 100 million people worldwide.
COVID happened, and then I was stuck in my room for a long time, and then I made my first YouTube video, and that YouTube video ended up viral, and I think I realized that there might be something here.
And that mission, it is to teach people how to learn in half the time. This episode, we cover a lot. How to validate any business idea.
If you can't find, you don't have a business.
And why just post more is a terrible advice.
Well, I see a lot of people posting things and actually sort of posting mindlessly.
Getting into the 3 learning strategies that cut study time by 20x.
So if I had to distill down 3 of the simplest but most powerful strategies that people can start using, I would say that will come down to...
But before we get into the conversation, hi, I'm Filipova, and I quit my 25 years banking career to find financial and personal freedom. This is Change is Possible podcast, where I talk to people to help you do the same thing. And this is Dr. Justin Sung. Justin, it's great to have you on my podcast. I've watched your idea of life when you were young was, I guess, to become a doctor. Correct. So what changed?
Yeah, so I get asked this question a lot. It's actually one of the most common questions I get asked. And every time I answer this, I feel like I'm thinking about it again and again. I think that there are a few things. First of all, I think the most important part is that sometimes it's impossible to know about a job or a career or about yourself until you have certain experiences. And I think there's a lot that you can learn about yourself through those experiences. And there's a lot that you can learn about what you actually value and what you find fulfillment in, as well as the nature of some of those careers. So when I was wanting to be a doctor and I was 16 years old, going through high school and thinking about life as a medical professional, I didn't really have a great idea about what that really meant. And even though I did my research around it, there's only so much that you can know without really being immersed in it. It's kind of like going to a foreign country and then living like a local. Unless you have a mortgage in that country and you are doing a 9-to-5 every single day, living in that country, you're never really going to know what being a local really feels like. And it's the same thing with a career, is that until you have to make difficult decisions and sacrifices and think about where your life is headed in a really serious, grounded way, I think it's hard to know the impact that certain aspects of a job or career is going to have on you. So even though there were a lot of aspects about being a doctor that I really found a lot of fulfillment in, like the people that I was working with, being in those sort of high-paced, high-functioning teams, the actual kind of work itself, like the field of medicine and interacting with patients, like I really enjoyed those and found a lot of fulfillment. But as probably any healthcare professional listening to this is going to understand, is that the healthcare system has a lot of things that are very frustrating. It's not very efficient. You don't feel really empowered to create change. You're often very exploited. And for me, a lot of those things felt like it was taking away from the impact that I really wanted to make and the work that I wanted to do. Like there was this kind of life of fulfillment that I wanted. And I felt that staying in medicine would be high risk for me not being able to have that kind of fulfillment. And so eventually I transitioned into education and entrepreneurship, which is what I do now full time.
Mm-hmm. So tell me a little bit about that process at that time. You're a doctor, and what is the conversation like? Did everybody say you're crazy and that nobody does this and this is a great profession and you should not do that and you're ruining your life? How did you, these discussions, I guess, were there. And how did you react? What did you do?
Yeah. So yes and no, people said those things. So yes, a lot of people said those things Isn't it a waste? Because not only did I do medical school, which is 6 years, but also on top of that, I did one extra year of honors, which is a research degree in ophthalmology, which is eye medicine and eye surgery, which is where I was particularly interested in. And so it's 7 years, and it's also not a cheap degree. In terms of the student loan, I had over $100,000 of loan, which is probably by US standards, not a lot, but it's not an insignificant amount of money. The interesting thing is that when I left medicine, I don't think there's a single doctor who asked me why I did that or said I was crazy for it. I think every doctor has had that thought go through their minds of, do I really want to do this? Is this worth it? And for a lot of people, and I know for a fact that, a lot of my friends, they don't want to be doctors anymore. They just don't know what else they would do. And it's very difficult for them to switch career paths because especially something like medicine, but I also notice this a lot in like PhD students, researchers, anything that has this really long training path. It's sort of like a railroad. You don't really have to think about what the next step is for a long time. You just do the next thing and the next thing. And there's always another exam or another goal that someone puts in front of you and says, okay, if you achieve this, you will be successful. And this is the right way to approach a career. And only when you get that sense of something is not right in life, do you then reevaluate and think, is this really where I want to keep heading? And by that point, you're 10 years deep.
Yeah.
And you feel like it's too late to change and you can't do anything else. And that's the situation that I think a lot of my friends are still in, right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's sad to hear that. Such a profession as a doctor, and I can't imagine. I don't know a lot of doctors. I don't know what it entails, etc. But from the outside, this is one of the profession that is, for me, the most respected because you're doing something for people directly. Every day you're helping people, you're saving people, etc. And to hear that people don't want to do that because of not being fulfilled, that's really, really very sad news for the society we have today. It's really sad.
You can't do a job just because other people respect it, right?
No, I understand that, but still the fact that the one job that should give you the most reward in terms of helping people is not, which is insane where we actually ended. Why did it happen? But that's a totally different topic. So you said you decided, okay, I have to change. So how did you decide to just completely leave? Did you have any savings? How did it work financially?
One of the people often ask me about how they should switch from their current job to a new job, or if they're interested in starting a business, what they should do. And I always recommend that people should not quit their job first. Unless it is causing you a very significant amount of mental distress and anguish. And then you're talking about a different thing. These are two different decisions. If your current job and your career is really causing you so much distress that it's affecting your mental health, well, then that's decision number one. Well, you can stop that, right? To preserve your mental health, you can stop that. That's a completely separate decision to starting a business. Because if you're already distressed in your existing job and you're already feeling like you're kind of burning out and all the other things, and then you try to start a business on the side on top of that,
crazy.
It's that's going to be even harder. So I think that's the first thing to clear up, is that these are separate decisions. Often people will feel really frustrated and burnt out with their current job, which makes them want to switch to another job. But if possible, I always recommend that you try to set something up on the side while you're still working your normal 9 to 5. It's unless for me, I was in quite a lucky situation in that I had started my business when I was 21. And so I was going through medical school. I was trying sort of balancing the business and medical school and eventually as a doctor. So by the time I had quit medicine, I had a business that I'd been running for about 5 years or so, 5.5 years at that time. So I could switch into that a little bit more easily. And I was also at the time, like in my 20s, I didn't have a mortgage, I didn't have a lot of other responsibilities and people were really depending on me too much financially. So I was able to take a pay cut as well and sort of absorb some of that risk. A lot of the people that I talk to, they're not in that position. And so it's not necessary. It's actually not responsible. You can't just abandon your family and just switch over. So I recommend for most people to sort of start something on the side while they're still working their normal jobs.
Let's talk about this thing that you started and why did you start it? What was that job? Did you do training?
Yeah, so it was originally a content tutoring and mentoring business. It was actually a non-profit. So I was learning a lot of stuff for myself, and then I was also tutoring on the side. That did eventually become a business. But one of the things I noticed really early on is that I would be teaching people certain skills that I'd learned, and I was wondering why do I actually have to wait until 3-4 years down the line to teach them these things? Why can't I just teach it to them directly when they're already, for example, in high school, so they don't have to make those mistakes? And I also realized that the people who really need this the most are the ones that are exposed to this the least. So these were people from lower socioeconomic backgrounds. They weren't surrounded by a lot of highly academic people. A lot of the schools that they were going to, the teachers were turning around very quickly. The schools were very underfunded. So they weren't getting a lot of that exposure. So they weren't developing the skills. And they were also the ones that probably needed it the most. So the program that I developed was to go out into these schools and teach them these skills. And it was in social enterprise, it's called a Robin Hood model. So I was charging services for people that could afford it. And then I was using those funds to sponsor students who could not afford it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I ran that eventually I think I ended up running that for 5 or 6 years before closing that down. But that was my first business, and that's where I got a lot of my experience with coaching people from.
Mm-hmm. And then what was the next business when you left really the medical profession?
So when I left, it was still the same business. I thought I'd take it a bit more full focus and try to build it up a little bit more. I eventually realized that it was kind of not a great. I just didn't want to work on that business anymore. And then actually COVID happened, and then I was stuck in my room for a long time. And then I made my first YouTube video, and that YouTube video ended up going viral. And eventually, after around 3 to 6 months, I think I realized that there might be something here in terms of YouTube. So I started that, and coincidentally, at the same time, I was already starting another business on teaching, learning skills, but taking everything that I'd learned from my previous business and sort of starting again fresh with a better approach, not making some of those mistakes.
Yeah. So what are if somebody is listening to you today, let's talk about these first skills you had to learn to do everything that you're doing today. How did you start it? Because at the end of the day, to start a YouTube channel, you have to learn quite a lot, right? And there is no guarantee for success because there's so many people on YouTube. So what are the skills that you had to learn initially?
I will say that being a successful creator, and I wouldn't even call myself a particularly successful creator. I recently attended an event where some of the top creators in the world were. And then I realized I'm a very, very small fish. And but there are things that I think I've learned over the years of creating, and there is actually a lot of knowledge and theory and skill in being an effective creator and building an effective brand. Because for most people, and most of the people probably listening to this, are not trying to create an entertainment channel. Yeah. They're not trying to do skits or prank people on the road. They're usually trying to create some kind of educational channel. They're trying to teach someone something. They're trying to build a brand for themselves. They're trying to present themselves as a thought leader, or they're trying to use that business to get top of funnel traffic, to convert into leads, to eventually convert into customers. It's a revenue generation stream. And so there are a lot of things that when we think about creating content or building on YouTube or on Instagram or whatever platform, we have to be really clear that we're not just seeing it as entertainment. We're not following what entertainers are doing, because a lot of the ways that entertainers will create content and create their own channels is not going to apply, or it's actually going to make things worse. And also, I think it's really worthwhile actually spending time to really learn about how to be good at building a content brand or building an organic brand, I see a lot of advice around just post, just post as much as you can, just get out there, post things. Well, I see a lot of people posting things, and actually a very small percentage of those people actually do particularly well with them, because even though they're posting, they're not actually really learning from it. They're sort of posting mindlessly and expecting that they will just learn how to be better.
Yeah.
And they're expecting that they will gain traction and a following. But that's not true. People are not going to follow you if you don't have anything valuable to offer. People are not going to follow you if they can't relate to your content. They're not going to follow you if you're not engaging and you can't deliver your content well, especially if you're trying to be an expert or a thought leader in the space. You can't come across as an expert or a thought leader in the space if you're not an expert or a thought leader.
Yeah.
if you don't know what you're talking about. And so there's a lot of this groundwork, and I don't think it's a great approach to try to fake it. I think there should be some authenticity behind it and really clear understanding about how you are trying to build this brand. If you're trying to build a brand that's based on I'm just posting stuff so more people are aware of my work, maybe if you have a very small local business and you're just targeting a very small local group, you're posting your things inside a local community group or something, that might be effective. But if you're trying to scale using organic content, you have to ask yourself, do I know my stuff? Is the way that I'm delivering it engaging? When I post something, what am I learning from that? If it's not performing well, which your first 100 posts will not perform well, what am I learning from that feedback? How am I improving my engagement and my delivery and my packaging skills? How am I learning more about the problem that the audience resonates with? How am I presenting myself? Like, these are conscious decisions that you have to make to build a brand.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people just kind of go out there and they look for the easiest possible way to produce content and just get it out there. And although I can empathize with the fact that you're busy and you want to make it operationally light, you don't want to make it so operationally light that it actually just becomes a waste of time because you're not learning anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And in the last several years, there is so much of AI generated content by people who, for instance, have never been in the profession or in a position to speak about something like, let's say, leadership. I mean, there are people who have never led anybody talking about leadership, and they can create these beautiful images or even videos on leadership, but they never been leaders. They don't speak from experience, and then they're surprised why their content flops. Well, I can tell you why, right? But when you start, you have to have an idea who you're talking to, right? You have to define who is your ideal audience, because otherwise you speak to the world, all the billions that are having social media accounts, and then at the end of the day, you're speaking to no one. So how do you define that? Define the audience?
I think there's two ways to approach it. The first is the same way that you would approach building any kind of business, which is that you need to go out there and talk to people that you think have this problem. So a classic thing is that someone will have a great idea that they think will make a business, and then they will talk a lot about the idea, but idea really has very little value in it. Unless your idea actually meaningfully solves a problem that people meaningfully face, your idea isn't monetizable. So unless you're just pursuing it as a hobby, that's not going to become a business. And so one of the most overlooked things, which I knew was overlooked, and I think I still overlooked, is spending time upfront really understanding who has what problem. And being really, really clear about it, and then figuring out where is the overlap between stuff that you are good at solving and the problems that people genuinely have. And if you can't find a problem that people genuinely have and they care deeply about that you can solve, if you can't find that overlap, you don't have a business. That's not going to be monetizable. It's not going to be scalable. And so spending time up front really trying to figure that out is exactly the same work that has to happen for figuring out who you're speaking to. You're just creating content, speaking to people that have a certain problem, resonating with that problem, and showing them how you can help them solve this. Now, the interesting part is that when you run ads, you can control your demographic. when you post on social, you have much less control over who that content reaches. And so part of it is this assumption about what problems you think you can solve for people based on your experience and sample size of people you've spoken to. But then when you put it in front of 1,000 people, 2,000 people, a million people, you start realizing that actually other people are resonating with this that you didn't realize before. You're discovering new untapped markets. And so there's a sort of learning from that feedback as well. You put something out there, you think it's going to hit a certain audience, but then when you look at the analytics, you realize, oh, it's actually hitting a different type of audience as well. And that could end up being a really viable business. And in fact, that's a big part of what happened with my content as well, is that I originally did all my work with students. This is before I even posted on YouTube. I was coaching students and holding classes for students. And then the parents of the students would ask me what I'm teaching them. And then I'll teach the parents. And the parents would refer their friends. And then I realized that actually there's more demand with the parents than the students themselves, because a lot of the things that I teach are about how to save time through learning or productivity. And turns out people who value time are like professionals, adults, they're the ones with the kids. The kids aren't trying to save time. They don't care. They don't care. They have enough time. Yeah. And so that was, one example of where even through my YouTube content, I started making content for students. And then what I realized is that the people who really care about this the most and resonate with it the most deeply, they're actually professionals. And so now over the last few years, I've been doing more and more work and content for professionals by reading the data after I've put things out there. But for a beginner, I think it's just understand what problem you're good at solving, put some stuff out there, see who resonates.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You just have to start it from somewhere, because once, as you said, once you get into something, suddenly you realize, oh, I can do this. Oh, and that actually happens. And then there are many other things open in front of you. That happened with me when I left the corporate career, and I had no clue whatsoever about YouTube posting, niche, anything. And then I had to learn about it, and that opened quite a lot of doors in front of me. So I have now several income streams, and I have about 1,000 ideas, which I'm stopping myself because, otherwise you go back into doing so much that you burn out, and that's not exactly my goal. What is your portfolio career? Because I like to call this, you have several income streams. I like to call it a portfolio career. So what is in your portfolio at the moment?
So my portfolio there's YouTube. And when you have any kind of personal brand, you will also have ad revenue. And then usually there's sponsorship as well. And then there's my business. And then there's investments. So, for me, because I had a business first and then I became a creator afterwards. So for me, my business revenue is the dominant one. So 93% of my income will come from business, and very like the YouTube ad revenue and brand deals is a very, very small part of what I do. People that followed my content for a long time will notice that I very rarely do any kind of brand deal, because I just don't think it's really worth it at the end of the day. So that's how my income is split up.
Okay. So how do you kind of diversify and thinking about new ideas, or how you plan your business, your YouTube channel, etc.?
So the ideation process for content is one of the most important steps. That's really where your content is going to make or break. I don't think it's accurate to think about it as ideas. Again, because we're not trying to create entertainment. If you're trying to create entertainment, you're just trying to find something that is interesting, novel, drive some level of curiosity, and is at the end of the day just going to make someone feel good by watching it. When you're trying to create educational content, your goal is to try to create a transformation. And often that transformation is not happening inside that video. Often the transformation is happening outside of that video through the actions and the behaviors that you drive. And so why are people going to engage with educational content? Either they are a hobby learner or like a super learner. They're just interested in learning about it in general. And there are some people that are like that. But then a lot of people are the ones that actually have a problem and they're trying to solve that problem. And so that's really where I think the best ideas come from, is by saying, well, what are the problems that the people that I can help face? and then breaking that problem down into the different levels of sophistication. So some people, a common framework that people use for this is like problem aware versus solution aware, or like pain aware. So some people are very, very early on in understanding a problem in that they feel the symptoms, they feel the pain of it, but they don't know why that pain is being caused. So, for example, a lot of people might struggle with procrastination. So they know they're procrastinating. That's the symptom. And so I might have a video that is just about helping someone understanding and unpacking why they procrastinate, just attributing that pain. Alternatively, I might post content where I'm taking them through to the next step, where they're aware of why the problem is happening, but they don't know what the solution to that is. And I'm just making them aware that, hey, there are 3 different types of solutions that can help you with this problem. And so that's really valuable. And for me, one of the main mindset shifts was realizing that if you take someone from being problem aware, just knowing what the problem is, and all the way through to executing on a solution, that's actually not valuable for them because it's too much. It's actually more valuable to help them just move from one stage to the next stage because that's relevant for them. If I say, hey, you're procrastinating and this is the reason you're procrastinating, and that's new insight for you, you never realized that before, that's really valuable. And then I say, well, in order to solve that, there are these types of solutions. Okay, that's interesting. And then I say, this is how you implement those solutions. That's now so far into the future that it's not relevant to your current point anymore. And then if I say, well, when you're executing on the solution, you might run into this problem and here's how you fix it. That's so far from their current lived experience that they're already tuned out. So by trying to deliver more value, you've actually ruined the performance of your video because now people are dropping off. They're not engaging with it because they're losing relevance halfway through. And so I think a lot of people, especially coming from normal jobs like service jobs or corporate work where they're just trying to like help someone solve a problem, they might think that actually to deliver value, you have to make the problem disappear.
Yeah.
But actually for social media, when you're creating content, the value that you deliver is just helping them get from one step further than where they started. And that's where the ideation actually comes from, is figuring out what step am I targeting and what's the next step I'm going to take them to.
Oh, that's a very interesting approach. And you're right. Everybody wants to offer everything till the end. But it's a great thing to actually think only the next step and see what is. It's the same like breaking down a big goal into smaller steps, right? And you think, okay, what is the thing I have to do tomorrow, and not in 1 year or 1 month or even 1 week. Great. So let's talk about. We're going to talk about now the 3 businesses, just so we can give the steps for people of how can they potentially do the same, right? If they decide to have similar businesses, what are the steps they have to take? And let's start with YouTube. What are the steps to start a YouTube channel? Imagine you know nothing about YouTube and you want to start a YouTube channel.
I think the first step is, before you even create your first video or think of your first idea, is actually be clear about what type of content that you feel like you just want to make. I think there's a very important intangible part about content that you feel passionate about creating. Most brands are not going to be built in a very short amount of time. Most brands will require consistency over years. And to feel good about creating content for that period of time, you actually need to have a good understanding about what you naturally lean into. And so I would start just by having a piece of paper and then writing down what are the types of things that you particularly feel interested in actually making a message about. What are the things that you wish people knew? What are some insights that you would like to share? You don't have to think about it too strategically. Once you have that list, then you can think about it in terms of, how does this relate to problems that people might face? How does this relate to how I can help them? And then that should help you to filter out the kind of angle that you want to take. Do you want to work on this particular problem and then help them move to the next step of that problem awareness, like we talked about? And from there, you should be able to figure out a bunch of ideas. And I would recommend start with maybe like 5 or 6 different ideas of types of content that you want to make. The actual making of the content is going to be the easy part, because most people aren't going to be great at this off the bat. And it's very difficult to be great at this off step 1. So there's almost no point trying to be great at this. You will learn to be great at this with enough experience. One of the things that puts people off is that, well, I might have this great idea for a video, but I feel like I can't deliver on that because I don't have the skills. I don't know how to deliver it. I don't know how to edit the video. I don't know how to all these other things. Well, that's fine, because either one of 2 things is going to happen. Either the way you deliver it naturally, just you being you and talking about it in the way that you feel like makes sense with very little editing, whatever it is, either that's going to resonate so strongly with the audience that it's going to do well despite that, that's an indication that you're really targeting a problem that people truly feel, and the way that you talk about that is resonating with people. So that if you're a deep expert, this is what can happen, because you know about this problem deeper than most people. And in that case, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that you don't know how to edit your videos. It doesn't matter that you don't know the first thing about operating a camera. You can record it on your phone, no additional equipment, just straight from your phone, right into YouTube, upload. All your ums and ahs and pauses and mistakes just left in there, and it won't even matter. Or that video is not going to do well and no one's going to watch it. So it doesn't matter anyway. And then later, a year down the line, when you're better at making content, you can redo that idea and you can remake that idea. So it's very low consequence. The algorithm is quite good at rewarding expertise and suppressing things that are mediocre. And that's actually good. It's actually a good thing that mediocre content is suppressed, because it means that if you're putting something out and you're afraid that what you're producing is going to be mediocre, you don't have to worry. No one's going to see it. The algorithm is not going to push it out. So you've got time. You've got time to get good at it. So get your phone. If you've got a camera, if you know how to use that, if you have business resources and someone in-house knows how to use a video camera and has a bit of AV expertise, put the video together, edit it in the way that you feel like makes sense. When you watch the video, if you feel like, yep, this I feel like it's good enough, that's all you need to get to. And then you just upload it onto YouTube, give it whatever title that you want, give it whatever description that you want, and that's it. And then you work on your next video, and you just continue that cycle until after a while, one of those videos that you posted is going to get some views. It's going to get some comments. And then you read those comments and you understand what do people think about your videos. And that helps you to refine the skill of content creation.
So how do you edit yourself, or you have somebody who edits for you?
I used to edit my early videos myself.
Sorry?
I used to edit my videos myself, but now I have editors that will do the content creation. So my workflow at the moment now will start with my head of YouTube in-house will help with some of the ideation, and I will also refine the ideation to get to videos that I think are compelling, or that I hope will be compelling. Then we'll do a little bit of content planning. I used to script out all the videos. Now I'm not anymore. I'm trying to move more and more towards just speaking about it, just how I would like to speak it. And then I record the videos. I upload the videos onto Google Drive. That stuff gets sent through to our editing team, and the editing team will put it together. And then we do the final review and a little bit of feedback in-house. And then my team will then publish that onto YouTube.
So for somebody starting, what is the best way to, once they have passed the stage of editing themselves, where do they find editors and people to help, people to post, etc.? What is the best way? Is it do you go the normal channels, you post, and jobs, or any other way?
So there's actually platforms out there specifically for helping you find YouTube editors or Instagram editors, because the type of editing you have to do for different platforms is different. And it can be very difficult finding someone who actually understands how to edit for YouTube for your brand and the style that you're looking for. So it's actually very easy to find an editor. It's very difficult to find a good editor that understands your brand.
Yeah.
Especially if you're commercial and you're running this as a lead generation mechanism for your business. Understanding someone has to actually understand your brand, how that YouTube fits into the rest of the pipeline. So it can be difficult to find some of those people. But there are actually websites and services that are out there that help people find this now. I recently saw a business. We are actually just making a posting with them now, which is based on trying to find this. They're called Roster. And they have been set up to try to help fill this gap as well. But it used to be really hard to find an editor.
Yeah, no, I went through quite a number of editors, and yes, I can confirm it's very, very difficult. You know how I started my YouTube videos 3 years ago when I started the podcast. It was only on audio, and then I would put on a video the audio file and the picture of me and the person, the guest, and then there was this line on the bottom. When we talk, it moves, and that was what I was posting on YouTube, and I would post it there and forget about it. I didn't even have the idea about that, and then 6 months down the line, I said, "Oh, let me check what is going on," and then I found out I had 2,500 subscribers, and I was like, "Oh wow." I can actually, if that's what the subscribers are for not a video, but really audio, then I should do videos. And this is how I started doing video. It's a very funny story. I never even planned it. So that's about YouTube, and that's your lead generation engine. You said, right?
Yeah, it's a dominant one. Yeah,
it's a dominant. Yeah. Okay. Then let's talk about setting a business, especially after leaving your main job, and it's a business that's completely disconnected, or maybe a little bit related to your job, but anyway, you're out, and it's something completely new. So, what is the framework to follow so you can set it up properly and set yourself for success?
Yeah, sometimes because I am thinking about business and managing the business on a daily basis, and sometimes I feel like there's so much to learn, and I always feel like I'm constantly learning more, and I feel like sometimes it's never enough, and I think like, why have I been doing this for such a long time, and I still know so little.
Yeah,
and every now and again, a friend will come up to me and they'll say, "Hey, I've got an idea for a business," and they'll talk me through how they're thinking about setting up a business, and I'll realize, actually, I know a lot compared to this person.
No, absolutely.
Yeah,
I'd completely relate with you. Some days are great. Some days I say, "Oh God, I don't know anything. What am I doing?" It's amazing.
I think there are definitely frameworks, and there is definitely learning that can help with setting up a business. I used to sort of be of the mindset that you can only really learn by sort of getting into it and starting a business and learning through experience. And while there are a lot of things that I think are very difficult to learn without having that experience, I still think there's a lot of value in actually literally trying to learn about how to run an effective business by reading books, taking courses and things like that. But it has to be balanced with real life experience that makes it relevant. So I think and I'm not a business coach, but from the people around me, from the businesses that I've seen kind of go up and down over the past sort of 14 years that I've been running business, I think the biggest mistake is just spending too little time on really truly understanding the problem that your target market has, and being too inflexible in the type of solution that you provide. So if you are trying to, business is actually very easy to set up. The fundamental principle behind it is very simple, is that someone gives you money to make their problem go away. The amount of money that you can make depends on how quickly and effectively you can make their problem go away and how much they care about their problem, right? So based on that, you have to already be quite clear about a few things. Is what are all the different problems that you can fix? How quickly can you fix them? How effectively can you fix them? And how much does someone care about those problems going away? And you want to find the problem that you can fix that people care deeply about, because they're going to pay you a lot of money for that. So it doesn't actually matter if the problem that you can fix is one that you, let's say, are particularly passionate about, if no one cares about that problem being fixed. Now, it could be that people don't care about that problem because of the fact that they're just not aware enough. And if you educate them on that, then they realize, okay, this problem is actually more serious than I thought. And so you can sort of do market education, but market education is also very difficult. And often the business is going to grow slower from that. And sometimes if you're really passionate about it, that's the case. Like I'm actually in that boat where teaching people how to learn is something that requires education around. Yep. A lot of people don't really care about that natively. But I'm passionate about teaching people how to learn. So I've just decided that even though it's kind of harder, I want to go down that direction. So in the beginning, before you've set up a business, you actually don't know. You don't know what problems people care about. You just have an idea. And the first stage of setting up a business should just be talking to people who you think have a certain problem and just asking them, how do you see this problem? How much do you care about this problem? How does it affect you? What are the solutions that you've tried? And then really understanding deeply whether this is a problem that you understand, that you can fix, and that people care about, and just ticking that off. And I think that a lot of people will set up a business, they'll get really stuck into the operational things, creating a website, building a brand, creating a logo, making content, setting up their servicing and their pricing and their invoicing and their accounting and getting the lawyer involved and all of these things that might take 6 months. And then they'll start selling it, and then they'll sell, and they'll have word of mouth, and they'll make a small amount of money, and then they'll worry about advertising and lead generation, and then worrying about conversions and tracking and data and hiring and cost optimization and all of these different things. And really, they're kind of working on these things about a business without the business moving in the direction that they want it to, because maybe they haven't actually spent enough time understanding the underlying problem. And they'll only reflect and do that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the line when they realize the business growth has stagnated and it's now actually more stressful than the job that they left before. So don't do that. Just start talking to people. Starting a business, the first step about starting a business is just talking to people to see if they have a problem that they really care about.
Yeah.
And that should take you no less than, I think, 3 to 6 months.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. When I actually started with coaching and one-to-one with people, all corporate professionals. And that led me to create, because I knew what their problems are, led me to create my community. And then I'm just starting my accelerator all on that, what are the steps, what you have to do, and it's very powerful. The moment you find what is that thing that people are interested in, it's just everything flows so quickly and it happens and you don't need to push it that hard. And even the lead generation comes so easy because people just come to you. You don't need to sell. So you are teaching people how to learn, right? This is the main thing you do. If we flip this question to you, so how do you learn? What do you find the best ways to learn?
That's a big question. I think the truest answer, and this is going to sound too vague to be useful to anyone, but the best way to learn is the way that feels natural and effective for your brain. And the issue is that a lot of people, they're used to learning in a way that is not effective and is unnatural, but they're used to it. So the unnatural, ineffective way has become a habit. So a lot of schooling will sort of build these habits of learning around, like, let's say when you're reading something, how do you think about what you're reading? When you're writing notes, like, why are you writing notes? When someone is speaking to you, how are you trying to understand that? What's actually happening in your brain? And there are lots of different things. Like if I'm explaining something to you, some people, what they're thinking about is just trying to remember everything that I'm saying. Some people are just trying to understand it. Some people go the next level up, which is, how is what this person is saying different or similar to what I already understand about this topic? Some people are trying to, while they're listening, re-explain it inside their own head to simplify it. and make it a bit more intuitive, right? Some people are trying to group and categorize things mentally as it's being spoken, finding a way to organize it inside their brain. And so these are actually different levels of thinking. And the human brain is actually very good at doing those higher levels of thinking. And this feels natural and it feels effective when you learn how to do it. But for most people, it's very difficult to start doing that because it's not a habit yet. The habit is just memorizing it or just trying to understand it because we have often over a decade of schooling that has made us feel like when we're learning, this is the way that it should be done. And so a big part of what I do and a big part of what I had to do to become vastly more efficient with my own learning is to unlearn those habits and understand what are the habits that are actually effective in serving me and what are the habits that I feel are normal and comfortable, but are actually holding me back. And then replacing those with more effective alternatives.
Okay.
So,
and yeah.
Yeah.
So what, if you have to say 3 ways to learn, what are the most effective ways based on what you are teaching people?
So if I had to distill down 3 of the simplest but most powerful strategies that people can start using in any form of learning, I would say that it would come down to pausing, synthesizing, and comparing, and trying to do as much of this as possible in all forms of learning. Pausing is about literally stopping the consumption of new information. If you're reading, stop reading. If someone is listening to you, if it's possible, ask for a pause or ask a question. When someone is speaking to you, this is the reason why learning through purely listening is so difficult, is because you often can't create the pause. But the pause allows your brain to actually have time to process what it's consumed. A lot of the time, we correlate information consumption with learning. The faster we're able to read a book, the faster we're able to learn. So if I say to someone, hey, I read this book in one night, in 2 hours. I read, I did this recently. I had this 200-page book and I read it on a 3-hour flight when I was flying to Melbourne. And that's because I had a meeting as soon as I landed. And I had to prepare for this meeting, so I needed to do some upskilling. So I read this book. And if I say to someone that I read a 200-page book in 3 hours, then immediately there is, in order for that to be impressive, there are certain assumptions. You assume that you didn't just flick through the pages. You actually understood what was there. And not only do you understand what was there, you can actually hold on to that information for a meaningful period of time so that you can then use that information for your life, like to actually solve problems, to make plans. And in order to hit that criteria, there are a few things that need to happen. And one of the most important things is that any new information that comes into your brain, you need to give your brain a chance to properly and meaningfully organize that and not go so fast that you're forcing it to try and memorize. When you go too fast, your brain doesn't have space to actually do anything meaningful with it. And it just says, okay, I'm just going to try to hold on to it for now. Hopefully later, I'll have a chance to actually consolidate that. And then that later never comes. And so if you're reading, at a certain point, you will feel, I'm getting overwhelmed. Like there's too much going on here. As soon as you feel that, you should pause. And that needs to become a habit. When I start feeling overwhelmed, I pause. That's number 1. So then number 2, what do you actually do when you pause? What type of thinking during that pause creates meaningful consolidation in your brain to turn that new information into solid understanding and deep memory? That's where the synthesis comes from. Take what you have learned and then do something with it. Generate something with it. Think about how you could use that information to solve a problem that you have. How would you teach this to someone else? How can you create an analogy out of what you've learned? All of these are examples of taking the information and manipulating that information into some other kind of form. So this actually forces you to not just hold on to it, but really think about how it's connected together and create meaning out of it. If you're trying to create an analogy, you will realize, I don't know how to create an analogy because actually I didn't really understand it. So it highlights the gap straight away. Often people will read through a book and only 3 days later when they're telling someone about it, do they realize, oh, actually, I don't remember what I read? They remember they read an interesting book. And then when they're trying to tell someone about it and they ask a question, they can't answer it because they didn't truly get to the core. So in that pause, try to synthesize something with it, reveal those gaps. And the final thing is to compare. So constantly be thinking about how what you're learning is similar or different to what you already know. And that, again, helps to anchor that information in your existing knowledge so that it can become not just new information, but your information. And these are 3 things that you should be doing constantly as you're consuming new information.
No, absolutely. Teaching others something that you just learned, for me, is the most effective thing. I actually do that on a regular basis because it helps me learn much better. It's, for me, there is no other way. It's, I learn something and I try and teach it to somebody because then it kind of gets into my mind and I start asking more questions and I realize, well, half of this I don't know. Well, I better go and learn something else. Well, this was really great. Thank you so much for everything you shared today. If people want to find you, what is the best way?
So if you want to find me, then YouTube, just my name, Justin Sung, or you can find me on most other platforms at Dr. Justin Sung.
Okay, great. Thank you, Justin. This was really, and thank you so much for joining me and spending this hour with me.
My pleasure.
I wish you all the best.
Thanks, Ani.